Welcome to episode 11 of Road Ready. Years ago, the Mobile Economy Run was a contest to see which cars got the best fuel mileage. This iconic event took place each year from 1936 to 68, excluding World War II. Gasoline was 20 to 40 cents a gallon. Vehicle manufacturers tuned their cars for maximum mileage, and the drivers applied special driving techniques to minimize fuel use. My years of engine tuning, new vehicle testing, and an understanding of engine dynamics has given me an edge around driving for fuel efficiency. Driving technique has more impact on miles per gallon than any other tool or accessory at our disposal. I'll share some tips and methods that work for me. To begin, I'll describe the difference between the best mileage I ever got from our 2005 Ram Cummins 3500 truck and a friend's similar stone stock 2004 Ram 2500 that never got more than 18 miles per gallon. When our truck was still stock, I drove 500 miles to Portland, Oregon from our home east of Reno, Nevada. The truck was empty, and I had time to spare. I knew that the engine's torque peak was 1600 RPM and stayed close to that speed in overdrive for as much of the trip as possible. Upshifts from a standing start were under light throttle to allow the quickest upshifting to top gear in overdrive. Upshift points were at 1200 RPM or so in each gear of the automatic transmission. My father, a Depression-era driver, taught me to drive, quote, like you have an egg between your right foot and the gas pedal. Although road speed was nothing exciting, I applied this logic to the trip. The aerodynamics benefited from driving slower and improved the mileage. Average fuel use, including several mountain passes, was 25 miles per gallon. Not bad for moving 4 tons of truck. By contrast, my friend's Cummins with a manual transmission should have delivered better fuel mileage than our truck. When I asked about his upshift RPM, he shared that he usually upshifted around 2400 RPM. This might make sense for a 4-cylinder gasoline engine, but that's way past the torque peak RPM for a Cummins 5.9-liter ISB inline 6. For fuel efficiency, this turbo diesel works best between 1600 and 1900 RPM. This range is both highest torque output for the Cummins engine and where maximum efficiency, not maximum horsepower, applies. The maximum horsepower RPM in any internal combustion engine is not the maximum fuel efficiency point. For gasoline or diesel engines, my rule of thumb is to drive as close as possible to the engine's peak torque RPM. Peak torque in a gasoline engine is a point where the engine still produces good manifold vacuum. The higher the manifold vacuum, the better the fuel efficiency. Popular during the Mobile Economy Run days were gauges like Stuart Warner's Motor Minder, which is still available and has been popularized by rat rod builders. The meter was simply an engine vacuum gauge with a dial that indicated the fuel efficiency of the engine. The readings were actually manifold vacuum, which denotes engine efficiency in a gasoline engine. Simply put, for a gasoline spark ignition engine, the higher the manifold vacuum, the better the fuel efficiency. Decelerating or coasting down with the throttle closed produces the highest vacuum. If you use a motor minder, your right foot becomes much lighter, and you tip in the throttle gradually. Jackrabbit starts and a heavy throttle will send this gauge into the red zone for bad fuel economy. It would be sensible to use a gauge like this in driver's training classes. By contrast, we drive I-80 to Reno in the Jetta TDI with a cruise control set at 70 to 72 miles per hour for the 70 mile per hour speed limit. This is a relatively flat road. Lifted 4x4 pickup trucks and cars pass us like we're standing still. Despite the current fuel cost, other drivers are traveling 80 to 90 miles per hour. Lifted 4x4 pickup trucks and SUVs have the worst aerodynamics. I know. Our Ram has a 4-inch chassis lift and runs 37-inch diameter tires, which knock the best cruising mileage down from 22 to 24 miles per gallon to 18 to 20 miles per gallon at the same road speed. Once I reach 69 miles per hour in overdrive, which is 1980 RPM, the fuel efficiency will drop 2 miles per gallon for each 100 RPM increase in engine speed. Using the cruise control is often suggested as a means for saving fuel. This makes sense on flat open highways with moderate traffic. When in hilly or mountainous country, however, the cruise control provides no run-up acceleration before a grade then buries the throttle to maintain a steady speed on the incline. If you had a motor minder gauge in a gasoline engine, especially with air conditioning on, the meter's needle would be frozen in the red zone this entire time. As for air conditioning, some of the classic grades in the United States, like California's Grapevine on Interstate 5 south of Bakersfield, have signs asking motorists to turn off the air conditioning during summer heat. While the primary concern is overheating the engine, an additional issue is dumping excess fuel into the engine to keep the AC running on an engine already under heavy load. A guarantee is that the faster you drive the vehicle with the AC on, the more fuel you will burn. Nobody needs to roast, so try slowing down a bit when running the air conditioner. The choices of fuel can also impact fuel mileage. I discussed this at the Road Ready episode on choosing fuel grades. Running cheap, low-octane fuel in an engine under load will deliver poor fuel mileage. Driving at sea level or low altitudes, I run higher octane fuel in the Jeep Cherokee. If my gasoline-powered vehicle is under load, like with a trailer in tow, I run higher octane fuel. If you choose to buy brand X cheaper fuel, use quality additives. This would be Seafoam, Lucas, or Chevron's Techron. You may not want to pay for Chevron pump fuel, but the additive package is actually quite good. Techron additive is sold at auto supplies as a supplement. I use Seafoam. Research the torque peak for your vehicle's engine. If you're serious about driving for fuel efficiency, run the engine at or near its torque peak on the highway. Our higher speed Jetta TDI turbo diesel peaks torque at 1900 RPM. I stay between 1900 and 2500 RPM on the interstate in overdrive. Both the Ram Cummins 5.9 liter and Cherokee 4 liter have aftermarket engine management software. Torque peak for the Ram is 2100 RPM, 500 RPM above the stock 1600 RPM torque peak. Best fuel efficiency is at 1600 to 1800 RPM. The Cherokee 4 liter now peaks torque at 2000 RPM, where the stock peak was at 3000 RPM. On any Jeep 4 liter engine, 2000 to 2200 RPM is a good RPM peak for highway fuel efficiency in overdrive. Practice driving for fuel efficiency and see if you don't see a difference. These basic tips should help. They've always worked for us.